I remember the first time someone told me my brand would never scale. It was a humid Tuesday afternoon in July, and I sat cross-legged on the threadbare carpet of my tiny apartment, scrolling through emails on my laptop while cradling a lukewarm takeout coffee. I just sent out samples of my custom-designed graphic tee, each one printed on soft, ethically sourced cotton, every stitch perfected, hoping to catch the eye of influencers who might champion my vision. When the reply came, it was curt and cold. Nice design, but the market's saturated, the message read. Your margins are too thin. You'll never scale beyond a handful of sales. I stared at the screen, blinking until the words swam into focus. Saturated, thin margins. Never scale. They stung like acid. My heart sank, but something in me tightened, a stubborn spark refusing to die. I closed the email and leaned back against the wall, tracing the frayed seams of my favorite hoodie, the one I'd sketched the brand's initial logo on. In that moment, I made an unspoken promise. I would prove them wrong. Those early days looked nothing like the glossy success stories on YouTube. I worked my 9 to 5 as a marketing coordinator at a mid-size firm, then came home and set up a makeshift studio in my living room. My roommate, Jessie, would sometimes peek in between her late-night video calls and catch me hunched over the heat press, pressing tees one by one. She'd shrug and say, "You're crazy," but I welcomed the skepticism. It fueled me. I named the brand Apex Threads because I saw every day as a climb. I designed each shirt to feel like a secret handshake among dreamers. Bold typography, minimalist shapes, little Easter eggs hidden in the seams, lines like "Rise Above" stitched inside the hem, a tiny mountain silhouette on the cuff. I believed people would love something that insisted, even quietly, "You're better than you think." When I launched my first collection in October, I had 10 designs and $500 for advertising. I spent hours crafting Instagram posts, researching hashtags, and sending personalized DMs to micro-influencers. A few replied, praising the quality, but most ignored me. "Not enough followers," they wrote. "Maybe next time." But slowly, very slowly, word spread. A local skateboarder posted a picture wearing my summit tee, tagging me in the corner. 3 sales that day. I squealed and showed Jessie, who offered a half-hearted congratulations, before retreating back into her Zoom world. I felt the rush of victory, however small. By December, I'd broken even on my initial investment. The wrong-footed disbelief in my inbox had morphed into cautious curiosity among some. A Portland coffee shop ordered 20 teas for its baristas. A yoga instructor in Toronto emailed asking about wholesale pricing. My sister's friends started wearing the teas to parties, and one remarked that she felt like I owned a piece of someone's dream. That line echoed in my mind so vividly, I tattooed a simplified version on my forearm, "Dreams worn." Then came the sharp turn. A harsh winter storm shut down my apartment complex, cutting power for 3 days. My weekend orders piled up dark and cold, ink spoiled in the printer, paper jammed in the heat press, Instagram posts unscheduled. I sat in the dark, candle flickering against the wall, and wept, wondering if this was a sign to quit. But the next morning, I patched up the presses, lit a row of tea-light candles around my workspace, and kept printing. Each tea felt like a small rebellion against surrender. In April, I took a leap. I rented a booth at a local street fair. My booth was nothing fancy, simple wooden crates stacked for display, a string of fairy lights, a folding chair, dollar store sign, Apex Threads. The first few hours trickled by with near-silent foot traffic. Then, just as I contemplated packing up early, a tall guy with a camera slung around his neck stopped. He asked about the designs, ran his fingers over the fabric, then asked if he could wear one for his next podcast interview. I thought he was joking, a random passerby. He laughed and said, "No, seriously, I host a tech and culture podcast downtown. I want my guests and I to look unique, and these are killer." I handed him a pinnacle tee in bold cobalt blue and watched him stride away, his silhouette bright against the weary spring sky. That moment felt like a thrill I'd chase forever. 2 weeks later, he emailed, "Loved the shirt. Episode drops next Wednesday. Link to our YouTube. Check it out." My heart thudded as I clicked the link. The episode began with his co-host's voice, and then there he was, sitting center frame in a crisp blazer over my Apex pinnacle tee. His name? Marcus Layton, a rising host known for interviewing startup founders and tech innovators. The quality of his podcast was solid, the audience engaged, his subscribers numbered in the tens of thousands. And there I was, my logo peeking out under his jacket lapel, my brand striding into living rooms around the country. I stared at the screen, unable to breathe. My phone buzzed, texts from my mom, friends, even a couple of influencers I'd reached out to earlier. Just saw your shirt on Marcus Layton. Your brand is on a podcast. That's huge. Congratulations. I backed away from the laptop, feeling dizzy. The barrier between my little apartment operation and something real, something recognized, had shattered in an instant. But even as excitement pulsed through me, a knot of doubt coiled in my gut. Would this spike in interest fizzle out? Was it a one-off fluke? Could I handle scaling production if orders flooded in overnight? What if this attention slipped through my shaky shipping processes? Or my small printer broke under demand? I spent the rest of the day in a haze, alternating between replaying the podcast, drafting emergency emails to my printer supplier, and hitting refresh on my website analytics. Traffic spiked. My homepage had been viewed thousands of times in the last hour. Sales notifications pinged 2, then 5, then 10 orders from New York, London, Sydney, even Bangkok. My phone dinged nonstop. Jessie found me in the hallway, phone in hand. "Dude," she said, her earlier skepticism replaced by awe. "Your site's melting down. Are you ready for this?" I laughed, a breathless sound. "I think so. I have to be." That night, I lay awake, notebook open on my chest, brainstorming ways to streamline production, contacting a local print shop for bulk orders, exploring dropshipping partners for overseas customers, revising my site to handle inventory in real time. My mind raced with possibilities, collaborations with other creators, limited edition runs, community events. The voice that had told me I'd never scale felt like a distant echo, a distant challenge now turned fuel. By sunrise, I'd drawn a rough plan: hire an assistant, invest in a semi-automatic printer, upgrade my e-commerce platform, and set aside funds for targeted ads. I messaged Marcus to thank him and asked if he'd be open to a follow-up, maybe a giveaway or an interview about the journey behind the brand. He replied almost instantly, enthusiastic and encouraging. That afternoon, I walked into Evervine Coffee, the same shop that had given me my first wholesale order, and ordered a latte. The barista, wearing her Apex Summit tee, smiled and said, "Big day." I nodded, smiling back, recognizing that look of someone on the brink of something new. As I stepped outside, I realized I was no longer the naive kid juggling a day job and a heat press. I was the founder of something that had captured attention, that could grow beyond my wildest expectations. A week later, I faced a new set of challenges: shipping delays, supply chain hiccups, unexpected returns in odd sizes. I felt the old anxieties creeping back, fear of failure, the nagging question of scalability. But I shut them down with a single thought: I'd already climbed the first hill. The mountain was waiting. In the days that followed, emails poured in from media outlets wanting to feature my story, a small brand that defied odds, that stayed true to its roots while embracing rapid growth. I gave interviews with trembling excitement, each one a reminder of how far I'd come. And through it all, I kept Marcus's podcast episode playing in the background, the moment my shirt appeared like a beacon, heralding a new chapter. They said I'd never scale. They were wrong, and I was just getting started. The days after Marcus's endorsement felt like riding a runaway train I'd built myself. Orders flooded in faster than I could press them, and every time my phone alerted me to another sale, my heart skipped a beat. But amid the adrenaline rush came the cracks: delayed shipments, fabric shortages, customer inquiries that piled up like overgrown vines. I realized scaling wasn't a single mountain to climb, but a whole range of peaks, each demanding its own strategy, creativity, and grit. One morning, I arrived at my apartment, cum studio, to find 7 packages on the floor, each marked "Return to Sender." My chest tightened. I rifled through inbox messages. Customer, I ordered a size L, but received a size XL. Please advise. Customer, my package hasn't arrived in 2 weeks. Any update? Customer, my tee arrived with a tear in the sleeve. What now? My neat rows of freshly pressed shirts became a jumbled heap. I sank onto the couch, weary. That's when Jessie poked her head in. "Emails are bouncing alerts like fireworks," she said, her voice softer than I'd heard in months. "You look like you're about to collapse." I rubbed my temples. I've been fulfilling orders without proper inventory tracking. I thought I could handle it all on my own, but she cut me off gently. What if you didn't? Her question hung in the air like a lifeline. I'd been so hell-bent on proving my skeptics wrong, one of whom was still the voice in my head, that I'd forgotten to admit I needed help. That afternoon, I posted a job ad, assistant for a fast-growing ethical apparel brand. Must love coffee, spreadsheets, and conquering chaos. I expected a handful of eager applicants. Instead, I got dozens. I read through resumes, looking for someone as passionate about Apex threads as I was. And there she was, Aisha, a recent college grad with experience in e-commerce and customer service, whose cover letter began, "Your brand's ethos speaks to me. I want to help others wear their dreams." I called her that evening, and by next Monday she was assembling in my makeshift back room. Handing over the inbox felt like releasing a caged bird. Aisha dove into customer service, responding to inquiries with empathy and efficiency. Orders began shipping accurately, return rates plummeted. I could breathe again. That freed me to focus on creative and strategic work, negotiating bulk t-shirt orders with a local organic mill, researching eco-friendly packaging partners, and mapping out next month's limited edition drops. Emboldened, I reached out to Marcus with a proposal, an exclusive podcast edition, featuring a stylized mic icon and the date of his interview. I designed the mock-up that night, weaving in a discreet mountain silhouette and a quote from his show liner notes, "Scale the summit." Within 24 hours, he replied, "Love it. Let's do a pre-order drop. My listeners will eat this up." That week, I watched the pre-order numbers climb, 500 within the first day, then 700 more. The sense of momentum was overwhelming, yet exhilarating. My Instagram DMs brimmed with praise and questions. When will it ship? Is there a women's cut? Can you do hoodies? Each message was a reminder that people weren't just buying shirts, they were buying into a story, a shared aspiration. With Aisha managing logistics, I turned my attention to broader partnerships. I pitched a collaboration to a popular rock climbing gym chain, limited-run Apex Threads tees sold in their gift shops, featuring the gym's logo alongside mine. The chain's creative director wrote back, "Your brand aligns perfectly with our community. Let's roll this out in 2 pilot locations next month." My pulse soared. This was the kind of scale the naysayers had said I'd never reach. But early September brought a jarring wake-up call. I received an urgent call from the gym's regional manager. Racks of shirts were selling so fast that they'd oversold inventory, leaving customers frustrated. Worse, the gym had to issue refunds and sent me irate emails. My mind raced. I'd promised 200 shirts to each location, but shipping and inventory miscommunication meant I'd only delivered half that. The pilot program, my big break, was on the verge of collapse. He regarded me, considering, "Fine, present both options. Let them choose." I locked myself in the back room, scrolling through order logs, shipping manifests, and supplier emails. In that cramped space, lit by a single desk lamp, I realized that while I'd hired help, my systems weren't robust enough for real wholesale operations. I'd patched together solutions for direct-to-consumer, but B2B required more structure. Leaving the room, I found Aisha sorting through studio samples. "I messed up the shipments," I said, voice trembling. "The gym orders, they're wrong." She glanced up, calm. "Let's fix it." We spent the evening drafting apology emails, outlining an expedited replenishment plan, and offering exclusive early access to the next drop as compensation. I called the supplier, negotiated a split shipment, 160 shirts in 2 days, the remaining 40 within the week. I even drove to the gym's headquarters myself, clutching sample shirts and a sincere apology, promising that Apex Threads wouldn't let them, or their customers, down again. 2 days later, the gym's regional manager emailed, "Appreciate the personal touch. Your replacement shipment arrived yesterday, and we've restocked. No further issues." Looking forward to the next season, relief washed through me, teaching me a vital lesson: accountability and transparency can salvage even the most precarious partnerships. As autumn deepened, I began strategizing holiday releases. I collaborated with a sustainable charcoal jewelry maker, designing a char and thread gift set, a shirt paired with a minimalist bracelet crafted from reclaimed materials. The bundles sold out in hours, and social media buzzed with unboxing videos celebrating the brand's ethos of mindful style. Yet success brought new challenges. A journalist from a major fashion blog reached out for an interview. They wanted to know about my origins, my ethos, my scaling strategies. I felt a swirl of pride and imposter syndrome. I feared my story of makeshift presses and bedroom studios sounded too small for their glossy pages. But the interview turned out to be one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. As I recounted the highs and lows, the dark nights of technical failures, the triumphs of listener-driven pre-orders, the tears when I thought I'd failed the gym partnership, I realized that authenticity was my greatest asset. The piece went live in late October, headlined "From Temp to Trend: How Apex Threads Scaled with Heart." That article generated a fresh wave of interest. Newly launched pop-up shops requested our tees. An eco-conscious fashion retailer in London inquired about stocking our collection, and a nonprofit focused on youth entrepreneurship invited me to speak at their annual conference. On the morning of that conference, I found myself backstage in a grand auditorium, my palms sweaty in front of a mirror. I slipped on my summit tee, buttoned a blazer over it, and caught a glimpse of myself in the glass, no longer the uncertain temp, but someone who'd built a brand that resonated. When I stepped onto the stage, thousands of eyes turned my way. I began with a story they knew, the day I received that cold email telling me I'd never scale. Then I talked about the power of small victories. 5 shirts sold here, 1 endorsement there, building momentum like stones in a cairn. I shared the blood and sweat, the winter storm, the misprinted shipments, the warehouse messes. I spoke honestly about the importance of building a support team. Aisha's dedication, Jesse's tough love, my mother's unwavering faith. And I emphasized a key insight. Scaling isn't just growth in sales or numbers. It's growing your capacity, your systems, your partnerships, your heart, to meet that demand without breaking your spirit. The audience responded with applause that felt like thunder. Later, a line of entrepreneurs and students formed to ask questions about sustainable sourcing, about balancing passion and profit, about overcoming imposter syndrome. I answered each with gratitude, feeling a profound alignment between my early ideals and the tangible impact I now had. Backstage, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "I've been working on my own line for years, but I stopped after too many rejections. You gave me hope." I hugged her, feeling the weight and warmth of that moment. "Keep going," I whispered. "Your brand needs what only you can give." November turned to December. I looked out over my apartment. Studio, now humming with upgraded equipment. A semi-automatic press, shelves stocked with inventory, a shipping station manned by 2 part-time assistants. I'd moved my 9-to-5 marketing coordinator job to part-time consulting, carving out more hours for Apex Threads. And yet, even as revenue climbed and my team grew, I remembered my first vow to stay true to the dream-wearing ethos. I tested every supplier for fair labor, negotiated eco-friendly shipping, and reinvested a portion of profits into youth entrepreneurship grants, funds meant to help other indie creators scale their own dreams. One evening, opening a video link from Marcus, I saw him again, this time unboxing the podcast edition bundle on his channel. He tipped his shirt, laughed, and said, "Folks, this isn't just merch, it's a movement." Below his video, comments poured in, "Love the message, ordered mine." What a cool collab. I smiled, thinking of how one person's choice to wear a simple tee had catalyzed a ripple across the world. In the quiet hours before Christmas, I sat at my desk, pen in hand, journaling my journey, from a tiny apartment and a bruising dismissal to podiums, partnerships, and podcasts. It had been a climb steeper than any mountain I'd ever imagined. But the summit wasn't an end. It was a vantage point to plot new ascents, expanding into performance wear, opening a community workshop for aspiring designers, and forging alliances with nonprofit organizations, championing ethical fashion. The pen hovered over the page as I wrote my final lines. They said I'd never scale, but scaling wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving to myself that vision, grit, and collaboration could transform a whisper of an idea into a chorus that resonates beyond any expectation. I closed my journal and looked out the window at the softly falling snow, each flake unique yet part of a grand dance. My brand would continue to evolve, pivot, and grow, but its heart, woven from every setback, every human connection, every late-night press, would remain the same. I stood, stretched, and slipped on my original summit tee, the one I wore that rainy morning when Marcus first walked away with my design. I ran my fingers over the soft cotton, felt the worn stitches, and whispered to myself, "This is only the beginning." And with that, I stepped into the night, Apex Threads emblem gleaming faintly in the moonlight, ready for whatever peaks lay ahead.